Boy, does Baylor need a rebound after losing at home week 1 to Auburn in a game in which Sawyer Robertson went for over 400 yards and no interceptions. That is just not a game you should lose on your home field, and yet they did. Why? Because they could not stop the run. I'm going to get to the details of this matchup more in a moment, but the stakes of this game come on 3 fronts. First of all, Dave Aranda starting 0-2 is going to start to raise some questions, not just about what this season can be, but maybe about how warm his seat can potentially get. Because this is a guy who was 2-4 at the start of last season, won 6 straight, and everyone thought, well, it's fixed. Sawyer Robertson's the guy. This is good. If you have a returning quarterback as good as Sawyer Robertson is, and by the way, if you haven't watched that guy play, at least go watch the highlights of the game against Auburn and see what kind of an arm talent he has. There's a reason he's seen as one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. I mean, he's no Josh Hoover, of course. I'm a big fan of Josh Hoover, but Sawyer Robertson's really good. So if you have a quarterback, if you have a team that is expected to be in the upper echelon of the Big 12 this year, you can't start 0-2. And yeah, having 2 Power 4 opponents, that's a tough start. That is a tough way to start. No 2 ways around it for the Baylor Bears. But you shouldn't lose both of those games. You shouldn't. One of them's at home against a team in Auburn who they might be pretty good in the SEC. They're not a 10, 11, 12 win team. I don't think Auburn gets close to 10 wins this year. Well, we'll see. I also thought they would lose that game. But I think the general consensus on Auburn, 7, 8 win team, maybe 9, but not a world beater. Good. I don't know that they're great. Now you take on SMU in a game that's on the road, but it is in state, and it is not against what you would call the most hostile crowd in all of college football. It is against a good team, fresh off a college football playoff appearance and a runner-up finish in the ACC, but this is an SMU team that I and others have suspicions about with regards to whether they can be at the same level they were last year. I don't know if they will be record-wise. I think SMU's a good team. I think they've got good players. I think Rhett Lashley is bringing guys in because SMU's committed to winning. I commend them for all of that. But Baylor needs this game way more than SMU. Way more. I mean, this is year 2 of SMU being a Power 4 program. It's not something, it's not reasonable to look at the Mustangs and say, well, you got to the playoff last year, got to get there again next year. No, SMU and Indiana, who should have gotten in last year, I said that at the time. I have continued to feel that way. A full season later, if they don't make the playoff this year, I don't view that as a failure necessarily. You don't build an annual playoff program in one season just because you take advantage of a weak schedule, and then you go to the playoff. So SMU not making the playoff, that wouldn't be a disaster for Rhett Lashley. They'd still be on a really good upward trajectory. Dave Aranda starting 0-2, yeah, that'd be a serious problem. So that's the first one, the first point. The second point, the Big 12 could really use a win. In the non-conference slate through 1 week and week 0, the best win for the Big 12 is against the Big 12. Iowa State beating Kansas State in Farmageddon back in week 0. Their 2 high-profile non-conference wins were against teams that I have power ranked as closer to the bottom of their respective leagues than the top. Utah beat the living brains out of UCLA. I thought they would, by the way. I liked Utah to win and cover in that game, and they did. That was a road win. Nothing wrong with it. It's a good outing for Utah, but it's UCLA. That's not a top team in the Big Ten. The other good win, of course, TCU beat the brains out of North Carolina on Monday night, a team that I have power rated towards the bottom of the ACC, not even the Big Ten or SEC. So the Big 12 doesn't have, I'm talking about the pressure on Arizona State to win. They've got to have that one. Boy, they really need this one too. And make no mistake about it, these sorts of games need to matter for the betterment of college football, or the continued urgency for whatever we have left of the regular season of college football, which does make the sport a continually great product. Maybe instead of betterment, it's lack of erosion. How about that? So that we don't erode it, these games do matter. And they also are going to come into playoff conversations. So for the Big 12, if you want to get an at-large team in, if you want to be considered at 10-2 Baylor, guess what? You're going to have to win this game. And by the way, if you do, 10-2 could get you in the playoff. Could. I'm not saying it will, I'm saying it's a consideration. But if the perception of your league keeps taking hits because the conference keeps going out and playing a handful of quality non-conference opponents and loses to anyone that is actually good, I mean, UCLA is barely favored against UNLV that struggled with Idaho State 2 weeks ago. That's an FCS program. And North Carolina looked like a complete mess. TCU is good. No doubt. I like TCU. But the Big 12 needs to have this win. SMU is a top 25 team. And if one of the programs viewed as a conference title contender, justifiably so, coming into the season, starts the year 0-2 against programs that are probably not making the playoff this year, but are, above average, but nothing special, yeah, that's a problem for the Big 12. Now, the ACC has had a bit of a mixed bag. On the one hand, Florida State and Miami, holy smokes, massive wins. At the other end of the spectrum, Clemson losing game 1 at home to LSU, not the greatest look in the world. So the Big 12 needs it more than the ACC. Baylor needs it more than SMU, but the stakes on this game, I think, are really fascinating. And so the Big 12's just got a lot on the line this week. Those two games, boy, they've got to be wins, or your conference is going to take a reputation hit, and then that's going to come back to bite you, as it did a season ago when your 10-2 team, BYU, didn't get serious playoff consideration. So the game itself, Baylor has to make one critical adjustment, and another adjustment they should be able to make. The biggest adjustment, you cannot allow, hot take alert, over 300 yards on the ground. Auburn walked into Waco and ran all over the field. Jackson Arnold threw 17 passes. He completed 11 of them for 108 yards. Why? Because nothing else was needed for Auburn to move the ball. Arnold ran for 137 yards. Damari Alston had 84, and Jeremiah Cobb had 74. 307 yards. There were a couple other carries in there for the Auburn Tigers, just under 6 yards a carry. This is an SMU team that you think of as being air it out, throw the football. Kevin Jennings, Rhett Lashley, they can run it better than you would think. They were over 160 yards per game on the ground last year. Nothing special, but they're not a bottom dweller necessarily in that regard. So I don't think that this is as tough of a game in the trenches for Baylor to match up with, but now they're on the road, so they've got to find a way to bring enough juice because they don't have the Waco faithful behind them. So I think that they can hold SMU to under 300 yards rushing, but boy, if Rhett Lashley's a good offensive coach, he's going to see the same thing on film that Hugh Freeze saw on film and most likely during the game, which is, hey, these guys can't stop us. These guys are not making adjustments. They don't have the personnel, or the personnel are not playing well enough to stop us on the ground. If you do not stop SMU's rushing attack, they will just keep going to it. It's what a good coaching staff does. Sounds simple, isn't always. So on the road, I think Baylor can make an adjustment here because I think Auburn is significantly better than SMU in the trenches. I loved what I saw from Sawyer Robertson in week 1. He had a great dynamic with some of his receivers. Cole Wilson had an awesome game, 8 for 134 and a touchdown. Michael Trigg is a legit big body target. This is a close game. A lot of points here. I actually think the under, I think there's a little bit of an overreaction. You could see a lot of points in this game, but 63.5 is a lot. I mean, that is a lot of points. And I think that that's just an ever so slight overreaction to what we saw last week. I don't think SMU is going to put up as many points as Auburn did. I am taking Baylor to get a win that the Bears and the Big 12 desperately need in this one. I will take them over SMU 34-27 on the road in Dallas.